County Historical Society. It's taking place on September 24th, 1989. This year we are starting at the Buffalo County, or the Alma Museum, which was formerly the Buffalo County Normal. And we'll go up to Buena Vista Park, and then if the weather is going to work with us, we're going down Reach Valley Road, where we will meet Mill Creek. 5th Annual Backroads Tour, sponsored by the Buffalo County Historical Society, September 24th, 1989. This year, the Buffalo County Backroads Tour is starting at the County Normal, which was the County Normal for 67 years. It will, we encourage people to go in and view the museum, but then we will go up County E to Buena Vista Park, which was given to the city of Alma by the Gans family. We will go down into Mill Creek, and hopefully you'll enjoy the scenic routes. And then we will end up at the Tell Church, and there we will have an exhibit which is pictures and other memorabilia from the families that lived in the valley at the time that it was settled.
Blanche, can you tell us a little bit more about this building?
Oh yes, I spent many years in this building. It was completed by the Walser brothers in 1902 and operated for 65 years. During that time, about 1,400 teachers graduated. They became teachers in the rural schools of Buffalo County and the surrounding areas and in Minnesota. The school was discontinued as a 2-year training institution because the state of Wisconsin required more credits than what could be offered here. This was, as you will see, training school. Later it was called the County Normal, and then Buffalo County Teachers College. The building ceased being a county college. The city used it as the city clerk's office and the police and so on. And then later they moved downtown when they built their new facilities.
Come on. What do we have in here?
Well, this building is supposedly, the reports say, #1 oak.
Here we have a beautiful oak staircase leading up to the second floor. How many floors are in this building?
Actually 3 plus the basement.
We're now entering one of the rooms of the Alma Museum, and with us we have Joanne Runyons, the director of the Alma Museum. And Joanne, what do we have in here?
Well, this first exhibit is a kitchen, probably either the 1920s, and the items have been donated by some of our members. And we have some of the dishes from the old Alma Hotel in there, various things.
Okay, in this next section. Wait a minute, what I have in front of me is a gorgeous tree.
Yes, that's our tree that we set up for Swiss Heritage Day this year, and it's Christmas in September, and we made the ornaments, and we're selling them on Swiss Heritage Day and the day of the Backroads Tour. Yeah. The doctor's office that we have exhibited here is from Dr. Emmett Miley. It was all donated by Mrs. Miley, who lives in Cochrane. And this, she said, is one of the tables that he used. And we have some of his instruments, and all his medical books are in the bookcase. And an old telephone that used to be in his office.
Isn't this exciting? For someone to preserve all this and keep it intact. Beautiful.
Yes, we feel lucky that she has given it to us.
We have another section of the room with a few more donated items. Interesting.
Just set up for this summer. It's aprons by Jo. She manufactured aprons here in Alma, Some of these belong to the Historical Society and some are on loan. These are some items that we have been given and to set up as a schoolroom scene. We hope to add to it. We have a little table that came out of the Lakeview School, which is down on 35. A lot of the items have been donated by former teachers, things that they have had. The little chairs used to be in this school when they had the practice teaching years ago for the students of the normal school. So we were very pleased to get these little chairs.
I see some boxes on those desks, Joanne. What's with the boxes?
Yes, we have 2 pencil boxes. It just happens that I found those at an auction one time. They came from the Reich farm. We have 2 of them, that one and this one over here. And we have one of the old McGuffey readers, plus we have 3 new ones that have been, they have reproduced the McGuffey readers. And that's
Thanks, Joanne.
This is the Gazelle photo exhibit that we have had. It traveled across the state of Wisconsin, and then we were given permanent possession of it. Gerhard Gazelle was considered probably one of the better photographers of his time. And we always have this set up, and eventually we hope to maybe mount some other of his photographs so that we can change the exhibit.
Gerhard Gazelle and his wife, one of the photographs. A photo of the courthouse being built. This is a photograph of what?
The burning of the mill in Alma.
Okay, we have a case here, Joanne. What is this?
This is one of 2 cases that Mayor Ritchie gave us, and the items in there are, many of them are advertising items given out by the various stores in Alma years ago.
Here's the other case, and in here it looks like we have some cameras and
Can I see something? I might mention that both these cases were used by Virgie Richer in the store out in Cream.
interesting. Well, thanks, Joanne, for the tour of the Alma Museum.
Well, thank you very much for coming in and taking the video.
Yes, Richard Dior presented this book to the Historical Society. It was a record that the Reich sisters kept from the 1920s to 1931 or 32, keeping track of every cent of money that they spent, and also every cent that they took in.
Isn't that something?
And there'd be even 2 cents for something. Now that takes a little maneuvering to manage to remember all that.
Oh my, what a budget book. Thanks. The 12-mile bluff.
This was the source of the name for the city for a long time. However, 12 Mile Bluff was rather long, and there are several versions of why it was called Alma, but I like Gates's story about he just was looking for a short, they were making a map and he was looking for a short name, so he decided, he found it in an atlas and decided Alma was a nice short name, so he named it Alma instead of 12 Mile Bluff. Then too, there was a pinnacle of rock that you no longer see because it fell. Fortunately, it fell at noon when the workers at the lumber mill were all having their lunch elsewhere, and no one was injured, but a huge piece of rock fell off that cliff that sticks out sort of to the north and west.
Here we have one of the caves in Alma, and Blanche, tell me about this.
Well, the earliest I could find that anybody knew it was there, that it was named Lincoln Cave, and the image of Lincoln was carved on the south face of this cliff, was in the 30s. We've never been able to find out who did the carving. It's an excellent likeness of Lincoln. And the closest we ever came, somebody suggested that Herbert Giese had carved it there. We were never able to contact him. He is now deceased. The hole, it's actually technically not a cave, it's a hole. It goes from the south toward the north, rather a large opening, and a lovely place.
This is part of the quilt show at the Alma Museum.
Thank you
very much.
Around 1912. I'll look and see if there's any yearbooks.
Here we have a nice view of 12 Mile Bluff. The Alma was first called 12 Mile Bluff because it could be seen from the mouth of the Chippewa River upstream. Here we have views of Alma along Highway 35. The old Lowry House, large brick structure, is now a bed and breakfast place. Next we move up the bluff to Bona Vista Park, donated to the city by the E.F. Gons family. The inscription on the stone marker at the park says, "Such scenes have power to quiet the restless pulse of care." Gons of Swiss stock was born in the Wamedy area and later moved to Alma, where he purchased the newspaper. He was a community leader, educator, and after purchasing the Bluff Farm, became a strong soil conservationist. Now Mark Knoll, neighbor of the Gons family, narrates some history of the park area.
This is the Gons, the road to the Gons farm. There's the Gons house. It's a large house, brick, 2-story, full attic, porches on 3 sides. It had a library with glass enclosed cases, music room with a baby grand piano. Quite a substantial house, built in about 1913, and it was home for the Gons family. Armin, Olga, Rosali lived here when I remember them as a youngster. Alma was the only one of the 4 children that married, and she married Clifford McClyman from Wisconsin Dells. Farm's a 200-acre farm with 90 acres open. This home farm is. It has the granary is still standing yet. The windmill that used to pump the water blew down in a big storm in 1966. At the same time it took the main barn down. The well is about 450 feet deep. It wasn't, basically they raised a lot of breeding stock, Angus breeding stock. Armin sold bulls and heifers. They had a powerhouse on the farm before electricity came. They generated the electricity with a stationary gas engine, and they ground their feed there and whatever else. There was a silo still there yet that didn't go down in the storm. As we get to Buena Vista Park, there's a monument right as you're walking out the point with a quotation on it. The land was given to the city of Alma during the 1950s by the E.F. Gons children. It used to be cattle pasture is what it was. They pastured their Angus all over the hillside, and on this point the cattle would roam through here. But it became a sort of a favorite place for picnickers to come up because of beautiful scenery. And they drove right through the Gons yard to get here. during the 1950s when it was made into a park, they put in all the picnic tables and everything, and it became a pretty popular place. As you go out to the point, you can see why it became popular. We've got one of the best views of the Mississippi River Valley. It's just outstanding view, and it's right above town. There's a big stone steps that takes you out to the edge of the rock outcropping, which looks down onto town. During the 1930s, from 32 to I believe 36, Lock and Dam number 4 was built. You can see it, a very good view of it.
Now, is there a fishing float over yonder too?
There's a fishing float on the other side of the river where people come from many states to do their fishing. You can see it's way over on the Minnesota side, next to the just below the Lock and Dam. A lot of people come out here to watch lockages during the summer and fall when all the boats are going through. It's a really good view as you look up toward Wabasha, toward the northwest. You see all of pool number 4 up through there. Way up into Minnesota, you can see all the way up to Pepin. Beautiful view.
And the promontory must stick out somewhat, because if a person turned to the left now, you could look downriver quite a ways as well.
Oh, you could. If you fell off, you'd get hurt too.
Yeah.
This is a picture of the Knoll Farm.
Now, Mark, is this your home farm?
Right. It's been in our family since 1929 when my grandfather moved up here and sold the hardware business. My father bought it from him in 1947, and my brother Curtis and I have been in partnership with our father, Andrew, since 1976. Right now, that's my brother's house right there. Now Curtis and I are full half partners, and we've got the original 120 acres has been added to. We've got 735 acres now. We also lease the Gons farm.
Well, I meant to ask you about the Gons farm, if you have purchased part of that property or if it was a lease arrangement.
Oh, we don't own any of the Gons farm at all. We lease it on 5-year leases. We bought a lot of land from Andrew Yost, and we've got some of the Meyer farm, which is to the south of us, which my Uncle Nubby used to own. We've also got some land down in Mill Creek that we bought.
And how many cows do you run?
We've got room for 74 cows in our barn.
Do you have a stanchion arrangement?
Yeah, it's a stanchion barn with the pipeline milker.
I see.
Very
beautiful spot for a farm home.
It used to be the Gobar farm. The main house up here and the barn itself were built about the turn of the century, the original barn. We've added a lot of buildings since then. And we're about halfway in the dead-end road that runs out to Buena Vista Park.
And down here, are we down in the valley, Reach Valley now?
This is Reach Valley. This is Alan Gleiter's farm right here. He and his wife Trish farm down here. I think they milk somewhere around 30-some cows. He's got 400 some acres. Alan bought the farm from his father, Elvin, who still lives in the next place to the up the valley from here.
Okay, thank you, Mark. You've given us a good rundown of the top of the bluff where you operate and where the Gons property is.
Okay, we are inside the Thompson home.
Yes, M. Collie Thompson.
And what am I looking at?
You're looking at the wagon that was in the Beach sister's house, and it has the original wood spoke wheels, and it's used as a coffee table in the living room.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Those are candle bowls.
Sandy, can you tell us about that side table there?
You mean me?
Cupboard?
This is it's called a hunt board, and it's made out of butternut that was our attic floor. And we took out the flooring and made furniture out of it. The kitchen table is also made out of the same. That's right, I forget you. Hello.
I think
Then you have to choose these up.
yeah, and he was going to have the portraits. Then he had another little table on the end of it. It was a bachelor.
For heaven's sakes.
If you come out of
Yeah, they weren't anything fancy at all.
that's the first one.
Ginseng farm. Crop.
We're looking at part of the old cemetery, and here is the Mill Creek School.
Okay, the first schoolhouse in the valley was a log shanty on the Wall Farm. And the Wall Farm is just up the hill from the schoolhouse. And the first teacher was James Benedict, who taught in the winter of 1858 to 59. This was the Mill Creek School. Now what we're seeing now is the new school, which was built in 1876. And I think it cost around $1,100. Now I went there, for first and second grade, and the creek runs behind the school, which was called, Mill Creek. But years before that, it was called Silver Creek. And when the mill was built, that's when they changed the name, to Mill Creek. And that was used, for a flour mill.
Would you say that was the reason for changing the name to Mill Creek?
Right, from Silver Creek to Mill Creek. Mm-hmm.
Now here, I think we're looking at, we're looked at the Wall Brothers Farm. Not too much is going on there at the present time. It's understood that one of the farms is rented out and the Walls live in a different area.
I remember when we were in school, we all had our jobs to do. and the older boys had this job to go get the water for drinking water in the school. And that was back Reach Road. They would go with a bucket, and then they would go along the bank of Mill Creek, and there was a ram. It was called a ram.
Oh, a ram. It seems to me that I understood years ago one of our neighbors had a ram, had a spring on his farm near the house, and he used the ram system, which is really a simple way of raising water from the spring up into the house. And you say there was such in the school area.
Yeah, they would catch the water that would come out of this pipe, the ram, bring it back, and then they put it in a bubbler, and that's how we had our water. And then we also, I know the neighbors around there, some of the different kids that would come to school, and some of the kids were the Walls, the Yosts, Gliders, Ludwigsons, Millers, Reich, Grubbs, Hoax, just to name a few. And some of their parents would bring cordwood, and that's what we heated the school with. They would sell it.
And you had the old stove with a big jacket around it, I suppose.
Yes, and I remember a time the teacher said, bring potatoes, we baked potatoes, and she'd put them down in the coals underneath the ashes.
Oh, great.
Best potatoes you ever ate. The remains of the Tell School, which is located on Highway 37, has been torn down and is replaced with a new town hall. That's for the town of Alma.
The school is located right along Highway 37. And in its day, as you can see, was quite a substantial structure.
It started out as a one classroom, and then they built on.
The inscription above the door of the brick structure says Reformed Church, but this church has been known first as St. John, then St. Luke or Lucas. The congregation members lived in Trout Creek, Pine Creek, Mill Creek, and Beef River Valley. In 1948, the Tell Church joined with a church in Alma, and they became the St. Paul and St. Luke United Church of Christ. Church services are usually held the first 2 Sundays in June.
Now we see some names of Aklas, Walds on the headstones.
Very beautiful cemetery and well kept the year round. A stone on the back terrace, or a monument I probably should say, is of the Davy family, Gordon Davy, and his wife, a Browner girl, Myrtle Browner.
Roscoe Wald, who was born or lived back in Mill Creek, and Melvin Glider, who also was born in Mill Creek, have done a lot of research on Mill Creek and its people, along with other people, from the valley. And they shared pictures and ledgers and other memorabilia with us that day.
Well, not to mention, I think, Sandra, you had some things there, too, of historical interest. What did you have that day?
I had some pictures of, I think, the minister of the church, which we found at the courthouse. And I think, some other ledgers that I had there also.
And there, people are lining up for church, or for lunch, of course, as you can see.
The first one we see is Kate Stetler. There's Mary Ann Pattison and Joy Cook.
And I think you should mention Gladys Fetting. I think Gladys registered the guests as they came in.
Yes, Gladys did. Yes. She did a fine job. Now we see Madeira Winger. She was there that day. And Arnold Gierke.
There's one of your
That's Melvin
historians.
Glider.
We're now ending the last shot at the Tell Church, which ended the 1989 Backroads Tour in the Tell area. We move now to the Sandy and Polly Thompson farm at the upper end of Mill Creek. we're revisiting the farm in order to speak briefly with Mr. Thompson and learn a little bit more about what they did to renovate this old house and bring it, what you might say, from the 19th into the 20th century. It was a remarkable job, and they have quite a story to tell about it.
Beautiful little home out here. And it looks like Sandy is planting some fall plantings, talking with Kermit.
We're here this morning visiting with Sandy and Polly Thompson at their property in a few miles east of Alma. We are revisiting the family and the property in order to get a little more information and a little more background following the trip here 2 or 3 years ago on a past Buffalo County Historical Society Backroads Tour. And we are planning with the sequences we have today to expand the tape that we already have. There's a special reason for stopping here. In these valleys in Buffalo County, occasionally you find a farmstead, an old farmstead that has been brought from the 19th century for all practical purposes into the 20th. That's what the Thompsons have done here. A little later we will be going through the house. But first I'm going to talk to Mr. Thompson about the approximate date that he bought the property, or they bought the property, and some of the challenges that they faced. Now, you say, Mr. Thompson, that you bought the property when?
We bought it in 1974 and moved into it in 1975 after about a year of renovation on the house.
Now, when you bought this property, did you buy the whole farmstead, all of the acreage, or did you buy a limited area?
No, we bought the entire farm, which has been owned in the family since about 1860, I think. Plus another 80 acres up on top that happened to abut our place. So it was all kept in one piece.
And do you still own all of the land?
Yes. Well, we sold off 20 acres to a friend of ours who wanted a place for a cottage, which he never built.
Oh. Everybody has dreams, you know. Well, then, do you rent the land out, the cropland out?
Yes, we do. I don't know which end of a cow to milk and which end to feed, so we have to lease the place out, and we want to keep it an operating farm.
Well, it looks like it's an operating farm, and it looks like whoever is operating it is doing an excellent job. And I want to compliment you on the appearances of the grounds here. I have to ask you a little bit about this water. Most people, or a lot of people for some reason or another, like to live near the water. Now, what was the reason for this pond? Was it for conservation or erosion control?
It was built for soil erosion control, yes. And in the last couple of years, I might say it's paid off in spades. But last year, if you recall, we had quite a frog croaker of a storm in this area. This pond was out of its banks and all over the place up in here.
You don't say.
It tore up the discharge bay was all torn up, and it still is. When the easement was granted, the county was obligated to maintain the dam, and in return for the easement, and they've had trouble getting money to do it. But I guess they've got a contract coming now to repair that thing. About it'll be 11 years ago now, the same time that Rochester went underwater, the Zumbro River kicked out. We had the same problem here, and that water comes out of that valley. You cannot believe how it comes out of that water. And it was within about 10 inches of going over the emergency spillway over there.
Oh, that's serious.
And that was getting serious. And it does act as a buffer against that sort of a storm.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the original intent of that. Now, when it was built, the water out there was about 12 feet deep. It's only about 6 feet deep now.
Oh, they have silted up somewhat.
It's doing what it's supposed to do, collect, stop the soil.
Any fish in there?
Yes. We in the wintertime, we catch sunfish like there was no tomorrow.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, let me ask you, what attracted you to this property?
Well, we were looking for a place back in '74. We decided to stop the world and get off, and we had built in 1945, right after World War II. We came up here and built the power plant. I was with the company that built the power plant, and I used to return and go fishing, go hunting up here in the fall. And Polly's mother, Miss Thompson's mother, was up in Minneapolis, still up in Minneapolis, and it was close enough to we could have access to it. Well, then when we found this place, that's all we needed. We fell in love with it. Not so much the house, but the location.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the house is really an asset. Because you had a basic building to start with if you chose to remodel or to build new. There's something about an old house like this, substantial as it is, that I know my wife talks about some of these old houses. She said that it'd be great if we could remodel them, but how about remodeling?
I think I would like to talk to her about that. This house was about to fall into its own basement when we bought it, and it's had to be worked over pretty severely in the foundation. They had, instead of having what we've got around the windows, they put hay bales in there, and it rotted out all the windows. There was a dirt floor down there that kept the basement so damp that all the rafters, all the floor joists had to be replaced. They were all dry rot and everything else. That was a big job.
Yes, I can imagine it would be. And you built the garage over here?
Yes, sir. That's separate.
I see. And this little building, what is this here now?
That's the smokehouse, which we have. I don't know which we have turned into a sort of a storage house.
Mr. Thompson says that they have built the garage. The building on the right here is old smokehouse, or probably was used for that. They use it for a storage shed now. A very substantial cement block building. I did want to ask Mr. Thompson about the former owners. Now, did you tell me a little early on that the Rice family had title to this property at one time?
Yes, the Lanickas, who had married a Riche lady, owned all of this land. In fact, it was a Lanicka who built this place and the Riche place up at the end of the valley.
Now, who built the house? Do you know who the original builder was of the house?
It was a Lanicka.
Oh, it was a Lanicka. Okay, so the Rice family that we have been talking about in the Historical Society because of some of their old records, deliberate records that they've kept, that lived up at the head of the valley. They owned this property, and that family, some member of that family, built the house.
That is correct.
I see. Thank you very much. I think that, unless you want to make some comments, Mr. Thompson, that would conclude our interview here on the outside of the house.
Let me say one thing. You got further offhanded about that smokehouse. They used it, and they used it to the utmost. You can go up in the attic of the house, and we've still got the old poles out there that they hung the meat on through the winter, and you go up there and bang your head all the time on the stuff. That was a very, very busy part of this farm.
But you haven't used it?
No, we can't use it. There's no way we could light up a fire for 2 people.
If I remember correctly, those poles in the old smokehouses were all oily and kind of slick, too.
That's right, and they hard. I'll tell you that.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're now in the house of the Sandy and Polly Thompson family. The house that Mrs. Thompson tells me is at least 100 years old, probably a little bit older. And I want to introduce Mrs. Thompson in her living room here, Polly, and Sandra Ebert, whose sister, Sandra, lived here at one time?
Sharon.
Yes, some years ago. And Sandra has consented to come out and visit with us here while we're in the Thompson house. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to these ladies, and they're going to tell us a little bit about the change in rooms here, and then we're going to look at some of the traditional furnishings that the Thompsons have here in this lovely home.
I don't know, maybe Paul will tell us, about when they moved in and a little background of their home here. And then we'll go from room to room, okay?
Okay, well, we moved in 1974, and the walls being 2 feet thick, there was nothing we could do to remodel the outside. So it was just whatever we could do, change around inside. And Sandra remembers this room from visiting her sister. So let her tell you what it was used for back then. It's just...
Okay, I think my sister lived here in 1966, and they bought it from Ewald Hartman. And I remember here in the living room, it was called the parlor. And you didn't get in this room except maybe on a Sunday or if you had company. Now, this to me, Polly, I don't remember. There was a doorway here, but I don't think it was this wide.
No, it wasn't an arch. It was a regular door.
Regular size door. Okay, and then like the wainscoting, if you can see the wainscoting around, I think Polly said there was a lot of paint on it, but this is the original.
Right, correct. That is the original.
Okay. And I know when my sister lived here, they had divided this room and made this part over here into the bathroom. Okay? And then in the corner over here, there was a door coming from their bedroom. And then this part of the room was for their girls, their bedroom. And now you opened it up and put it back into the parlor or your living room, right?
Right.
Okay. Maybe when we're in here, we could see like the deep window. This, like you said, it was 2 feet thick.
Yes, the walls are.
And the windowsills. And that's how it was, and that's the way it is now. And I think here's...
You mentioned Ewald Hartman, and this this coaster wagon came from...
Are you ready?
Okay. Okay, this coaster wagon came from this valley up at the Reich place, and I bought it from Ewald Hartman, who lived here at one time. You mentioned him before.
Yeah, this is neat. Let's just look over here a little bit closer. I just want to see. Here it says Janesville, what is it, ball bearing coaster, huh? That's neat.
It has wood wheels. It makes a neat coffee table.
Oh, that is so neat. Oh, that's lovely. Let's see, maybe?
And jerk her around.
Okay, we're upstairs now. Polly has brought me upstairs, and this is right directly above the parlor or their living room now. And maybe you could tell me a little bit about, I don't think there was this wainscoting or the...
The wainscoting was here. There were no closets at all upstairs, so we kind of juggled around them. Every bedroom has a closet now. But we lost size in bedrooms in the other two. But this one is...
This is the original size of this room.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
See, this was in the other bedroom. That's why the other bedrooms are quite small.
Oh, okay.
And there was no hall.
No.
No,
I remember that, except
another bedroom, and it's where I learned how to stencil. I experimented did this first of all and kind of tried many different patterns.
Got to zoom in here and see what the, oh my stars, look at that. Super.
yeah, the hall came
All
around
right,
here then.
Sandy, what do we have in there?
Okay, we have another bedroom here, and I know on the walls, now it's beautiful wallpaper, and years back, I know when my sister lived here, it used to be all blue. All the rooms were, should we say painted, Polly, or was it was a powder that you used to mix years ago
Yes,
and put
it
it
was.
on with
But they were
brushes.
all blue.
They were all blue. And now we are in the hallway, and this is an old pie safe. Is that right?
Correct.
And that's something that you had.
Yes,
It
that's
wasn't
something
here
that I-
that they.
Picked up in my travels, antiquing.
Okay. Okay, now we're in, is this the dining room? Okay, which used to be the living room when my sister lived here.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I see you have a beautiful table here.
Now, this is an old farm piece. It's called a harvest table. And it just, the family we can seat about 3 kids on the bench, and it just works out very well.
And then it's got the leaves that you
Yes.
put up and,
Let's see.
oh gosh, that's great.
And then this piece was made, do you want me to hold that?
don't you hold that?
This piece was made from the attic floor that was here, and it is butternut. And Mr. Thompson made it, and we had a lot of fun designing, and again, that's called a hunt board.
Oh, hunt board.
And it's like a buffet. It's good storage.
Boy, so that's solid. That is really
Right.
solid. Oh gosh, that's neat. Okay, we're sitting in the kitchen now, which we think was the kitchen way back. We're not sure. I know years ago they used to have summer kitchens, but this is built
Well,
almost,
this is
you know,
built onto the house. Summer kitchen sometimes had a gap, you know, you run across a little area to get to the summer kitchen because that was supposed to be the coolest place on the
A
farm.
breeze away.
Yeah, breezeway, you're right. Well, Sandy, now, I see you have a tile floor in the
Yes.
kitchen.
It's, after going through about 3 linoleum floors, that was my bride's idea of put down about 3/4 inch plywood and then screwed it in tight and then just put this tile on top of it.
And is the original hardwood floor still under here?
Yep.
Yes, it is. And it's, as she says, it's not a friendly floor if you drop something, but it's a lot better than linoleum.
I see.
Well, it lasts with it. Everyone lives in this kitchen.
Yeah, we don't usually know, we don't get past the door. You mentioned that if we think this was the original kitchen. The reason I doubt it is there's a threshold right there. And that wall is considerably, and he said that to be light.
yes.
And considerably thicker than the other walls around the house. And that's why, and there's the rest of the house has a full foundation. This only has a crawl space. And that's why I think that this came as an afterthought.
Maybe did. It could have been. Who knows? Because I know under the maple flooring, you said it was maple flooring. I know there used to be a crawl space and even a cistern, I think.
You're right. It's just
You know, so maybe then it could have been like a woodshed or the cistern all together out and connected.
Did you say, Sandy, that there was a pump or a windmill up on the hill and the water was pumped down here?
There was no windmill, but there was a cistern up there.
I see.
We just took the house down the other side.
Last
Just
year.
helped it fall down. But it used to bring water to the house and out to the barn. And they were using that, I think Bob was using that when we bought the place.
This dry sink was a present from my husband when we lived in Illinois, and it has lots of tricky things about it. Here's a flour bin, and then you made your bread here, pulled this out, and you had a board to knead on. I should have wiped that off. Then drawers, And here's where they wash the dishes, but this was the main piece of equipment in a farm kitchen. Okay?
Now, is that where they wash the dishes, that's metal?
Yes, this is zinc.
How did they get the water out of it?
Well, it was just for splashing. You had a pitcher and a bowl, you know. Your water was in a container and you just, it was so you didn't ruin the wood.
I see.
That was all. Then your dishes up above.
Isn't that a wonderful piece? Thank you.
You're looking at probably my most favorite dog. He's one that I made a field champion out of. Took him to a lot of trials, and we just put him down about a year ago. All right. These other dogs, most of them are just old hunting dogs. I've tried to do what I did with him, with them, with not much success. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to make one field champion in my time anyway. This dog over there, with the one with her head up pointing to the sky, was my first field trial attempt, and she was a dinger. And she made a pretty good hunting dog, and that's where it all ended.
Are they, excuse me, are they labs?
They're all labs, yes. Yeah, I don't, at this point, I wasn't trying to train anything but Labradors. The other pictures are these duck pictures that you see around are either prizes that the dogs have won, or this one up in front here was given to me as a national judge, and this one was given to me as a judge's present at a weekend trial. But most of these are dogs that here was probably the nicest hunting dog I ever had. I've got a picture of a partridge and a picture of some woodcock that he and I got together one year, and that's just about it. That over there are Jigger's certificates of his title, and that dollar bill down there, Polly and I came out of breakfast the morning that we won we titled him. It was out at Omaha, Nebraska. Down on the floor was on the driveway was a dollar bill. I picked it up and put it in my pocket and said, "That's good luck," and it was. So I hung on to that. But this is the doghouse in more ways than one.
What a nice room this is. And what was this room? A bedroom or something?
I think it was when we bought the place. Yes, it was a bedroom.
Okay.
And I can't. If you want to know about the desk, you'll have to ask my bride, because I don't know too much about it.
Well, this is a nice place. Thank you so much for sharing this with your dogs.
We're leaving the Thompson residence now, and we want to thank the Thompsons and Sandra Ebert for taking part, the Thompsons for letting us go in their house and enjoy their beautiful home here, and Sandra Ebert for helping us out in the house. And so I say good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much. Come back sometime when you're not working so hard.
Yeah, we're on the Andy Yost farm here, where the ginseng is grown by the J&A ginseng growers, which is Andy and John and Andrew Biles, and Tim and Sally Stirs and Susan Biles.
What is this shed down here? What is this?
This is
I just see roofs.
This is a protective covering. The ginseng cannot tolerate the direct sunlight, so it's an artificial shade.
How many, how do you get it by the bushel or a truckload or what?
We sell it by the pound.
Oh, pound. Okay.
That's all right. This afternoon, the 18th day of October, we're at the Yost farm, and looking at their ginseng crop. This part of the film will be incorporated with our Backroads Tour route taken some years ago when we came down this valley. And I'm going to ask Andrew Yost about how he got started in the ginseng business. It's kind of new in this part of the country, the way I understand it.
Well, about 15 years ago, we had a Scott tournament at Wausau, and my son-in-law was with me. And this gentleman, what's his name?
Ed?
No, the old...
Oh, Herbert Humershausen.
Humelhausen.
Yeah.
And he got to be very wealthy at it. And his son-in-law was in partnership with him, and he was moved to Ohio, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
With his job. And he came back and he was looking for some ground to plant more ginseng. So I volunteered. I said, well, come down to my place. I got a lot of ground. We'll raise ginseng there. So then that's the way we started. We started at a small plot, and we kept getting a little larger each year.
Well, the way I understand it now, Andrew, my first experience with ginseng, or looking at ginseng some 25 or 30 years ago, was when I drove over to Wausau on Highway 29. And when you got into Marathon County, you run into quite a few ginseng plots. Now, tell me why this area here that you've got is such a good spot for raising ginseng.
Well, I wish my son-in-law was here, but he's gone, of course, on a trip. But it's the soil. What kind of soil is it called, Tim? Is the best?
Well, it looks like I don't know really much about that soil types, but it looks like a Fayette. That's kind of a heavy loam soil.
Yes, that's what it is, a heavy loam.
Yeah.
And of course you need drainage.
Well, you've got that here, and then you've got a kind of a southern exposure too. Everything drains down this way, so it looks to me like you've got kind of an ideal spot. Yes. Now, this field here, did you say that that's the one that was harvested this year?
Yes.
And that's about an acre of ground?
Yes, not quite an acre.
Not quite an acre. And how is the crop?
Very good this year, because there was a dry season.
Is a dry season, is that conducive to good root growth?
Yes, it likes it dry.
It likes it dry. Tim, when I was talking with Andrew early on, he says that this area here, where you see quite a bit of growth, is what is going to be harvested next year.
Yes, that's a 2-year-old crop this year. These are a 1-year-old crop. And the reason why you can't see them quite as well as you can those is because we've recovered them with straw.
Do you leave the straw on there and let the plants grow up through the straw?
Yes. The way that it's shaped in there, if the straw is not on there, frost will go underneath and will freeze the ginseng root out.
Oh, it will?
And kill it.
What is the biggest problem now? Is frost a big problem, or is there some disease problem that you run into?
There are a couple diseases that we do have to fight with. And
how do you combat them?
Chemicals.
Oh, I see. Do you go in there and spray at what stage? At the first or second year? Or
throughout
what?
The whole summer.
Oh, the whole works?
The whole year. It's a constant battle. And this year, because of the rain, the small amount of moisture we have, we had it was a good year.
That's what Andrew said. It turned out real good.
Kermit, do you have excuse me, do you have a root in your pocket that we can look at?
Yes.
See what ginseng looks like.
This is a root that Andrew searched that harvested area over here on our right and come up with this root. Now, I said, remarked to you that there probably wouldn't be many roots left there at $45 a pound.
Okay, what?
Can't get them all.
Why do you, what's the value of ginseng? What is it used for?
To the Orient, it's their cure-all. Anything from making them live longer, and it's just been in their heritage for years and for centuries, and if you can take it, you're going to live longer and be healthier.
So is all the roots exported then?
90% of them.
Well, now.
And then it comes back to our country at 3 times the price, right?
Probably, yes. Yeah.
But now, why don't they grow it over there?
The quality.
Oh, they get better ginseng here?
Yes.
Oh,
What they use ours for is more, it's more tolerable to the system, and they take it on a daily basis. Where most Americans, if we wake up with a headache, we'll take an aspirin. Well, they'll take ginseng to prevent that headache from happening, and I guess that's kind of their feeling on ginseng. But there are Korean ginseng, there are better types of ginseng than ours, but those are, if you're real sick, apparently they take those. But
I see. So it has various purposes, and there are it's just like there being various medicines, and even
right.
within the ginseng family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Kermit, I am looking at, is it Tim?
Yes.
Tim.
And the reason that he looks this way is because he doesn't normally harvest or grow
No,
ginseng with
these are
his
not my
hands.
ginseng clothes.
But what kind of clothes, why do you look like this today?
Well, I was bow hunting this morning.
Ah, there we go.
So the ginseng is done, and now I can hunt a little bit.
All right, well, we just need to, we needed to explain this look, this makeup that he has.
That's right.
He doesn't normally walk down the street or work in the ginseng field with us on it, right?
No, I don't have to be camouflaged to work.
All right, good.
So.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Tim.
Thank you.
We're now moving from the ginseng farm back up in the same valley to the old Rice property. It's known as Rice Creek that comes down, the stream that comes down through. They were a very unusual family. And Mark Knoll, a neighbor who lived up on the bluff, used to visit this rather remarkable family as a youngster. And he has some story to tell that is really quite interesting and significant.
Well, I think it was about 200 acres or so. It was if I remember, it's 540s right in a row, all in a line. I remember the Reich sisters, Ursula and Annie. We used to go down there when I was a kid and do some camping down there. They had this beautiful log spring house right over the top of the spring, and it was the best water in the whole world, of course, and we used to drink it like there wasn't going to be any made anymore. But we used to camp down there, and they'd always have us come in for sugar cookies, and that. Even in their old days, they were getting pretty crippled up toward the end. They still milked some cows. They had 3 or 4 cows out in the barn, and they'd go out and milk them by hand. They always tied a rope around their flanks so that they couldn't kick. And at that time, they rented their land out. They weren't farming themselves.
Now, as I understand in Mrs. Patterson's account, Mr. Reich was a carpenter, and he built most of those buildings himself.
Oh yeah. In fact, you go down to like in the barn, his initials will be carved in somewhere or whatever, and he was a pretty handy builder. And he built, well, that's the way a lot of people were in those days. They did their own work.
And much of the type of construction is what they call a frame barn, where you put cross beams in and use pins, wooden pins, to hold the frame together.
Right.
Yes.
They did a lot of that. The house there's big stone walls in the house. You know, it wouldn't be moved by, I think a tornado could come through it. Those walls are still going to be there, the big thick walls, and quite a house.
And I understand now that the Reich sisters are deceased. Is that true?
Yeah, they're gone.
And a young fellow by the name of John Teets owns the property at this time.
He bought it from Donald Deerauer, who had bought it from the Reich sisters.
Oh, there was an owner between the Reich sisters and...
Yeah, you bet.
I see.
Donald ran the farm. He's got a dairy farm up near Tell, and he traveled back and forth on the road, to get the crops off, and he rented the house was rented out to several people for quite a while. I suppose maybe 10 years or better that it was rented out.
Oh, I see. There was some occupancy there.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite an unusual story about an unusual family. And I thank you again, Mark, and you've given us some hometown information, so to speak, when you live right here and know those people personally. I think that's great. Thank you.